We're going to try to mute those that are on the webinar that are not presenters. So we eliminate background noise, and we're going to start here in just 1 minute. Okay. Well, let's go ahead. Sure appreciate everybody taking time out of their busy schedule to take a look at this with us and have let's have a good time together. My name is Scott Jentz, and I'd like to welcome everybody to our conversation today with Dr. David Hamas and his office manager, Angie.
Hi.
We're going to be sharing some of their success as it relates to an intentional and really active investment that they made in the culture of family-focused eye care, their clinic group in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Before we jump in, I'd like to prime your thinking that as business owners, we all have a sense of what good culture is, and I think we also have a sense of what's not good. It's particularly easy when a business has a bunch of employee turnover, or the owner or leader is a jerk, and customers can tell. Bad culture results in bad outcomes. It's just that simple. You can learn about developing good culture, or so to speak, learn from a lot of articles, books, blogs, and experts, but they implore us more or less to care about culture as opposed to giving us a cookbook that helps deliver it. And as a business owner, I think we should all have a reasonable way to articulate our culture as a living manifestation of our why. And if it's not what we want, then we should have a way to be able to change it. We want to run a business where employees feel valued and where they do work on the leader's behalf in the same way the leader of the business would do it. And yet, according to Wisconsin Optometric Association executive Peter Theo, the #1 topic of all the phone calls that come into the WA office is, I have a staff problem. And I think that that's true in not just eye clinics, but a lot of small to medium-sized businesses where the leader's trying to be a little of everything, and it's hard to develop and foster culture. I do care about culture. I think I developed good culture in the practice that I was a part of, but I got much more engaged in following the growth of the Eyecare software company that I co-founded in 2006, where we started with an original team of 5 people and got up to about 20 employees, and we were having a harder time staying connected through just Skype or email. And it really wasn't helping us build a great culture. In fact, it was completely exhausting and really counterculture when we would get email introductions of new employees, and we would get a cascade of dozens of follow-up emails that said, welcome to the team, Jane, welcome to the team, Jane. And by using these ad hoc tools, email and Skype and other things to try to keep people connected and drive culture, we weren't really advancing it. So I wanted a way to actively create deeper culture. And I had a drive that the shared purpose that I believed in, the employees believed in. And so I thought for all the advice and research and consulting that I had read about organizational culture, the uselessness of it was really amazing because there were like 5 or 10 obvious talking points, and they're all very superficial, like, become the best place to work in your community. And along this journey, I met Scott Cole, who's my eventual co-founder in a software platform that would end up being used by all of our software company employees to ultimately deliver and drive epic culture. We set off on a journey to build a software system that developed trust and connectedness between our employees. And from the business owners, leaders, CEO level, right down to the new hire, it has done that. It's called ThirdSpace. And that is the place between your first space, which is your personal life, and your second space, which is your work life. And ThirdSpace works. It worked for the company even when we got beyond 200 employees, and it works for Family Focus today. So today our goal is to present this real example of how ThirdSpace can work for a clinic business by hearing from Dr. Hamas and Angie. We've learned that ThirdSpace can really move the needle in developing an authentic sense of trust and creating human connection. And by building relationships, people have their culture grow on them, and they love to work, they love to come to work, supporting the mission, and importantly, staying in the business as an employee. So ThirdSpace is a digital tool that delivers epic culture, and I'd like to welcome you once again, Dr. Hamas and Angie. Thanks for being here tonight.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Scott.
So I'd like to ask each of you to give me a statement. David from the practice owner and doctor perspective, Angie from the office manager perspective, of what culture's been like in the business and why this investment in culture is something that's been positive for you so far. Why don't you start, David?
Well, just like you, and when you ran your practice, we like to think we foster good culture and do the best for our team and our staff. But um, there's always more that can be done, and this was just a great opportunity to bring people together more on our team. We are now up to 34 staff, and so our departments were getting larger and less communication was going on in between the departments. Of say teching and optical and the front area. So um, this tool has helped us kind of bring the group together as a whole and really just a great communication tool and networking tool between all of the departments, between just our office as a whole, as well as having a social aspect and creating more culture that way, so that people don't just feel it's about work. It's kind of a all-encompassing thing. So,
How about you, Angie?
You know, it was really for bringing the fun back into the workplace too. And that communication, he's right. That was something that we were starting to lose the larger we got. And like you attested to before, you know, we were searching for that deeper connection too, so that everyone could really get to know each other, especially for newer people. It has been a huge win and a huge success. For newer people coming on board, I was talking to one of my employees earlier that started on Monday. And she said, that's how I'm getting to know the faces with the names on there, because everyone has a personal picture. And you make the rounds and you're able to meet everyone, but this way you're kind of getting to see the personality coming out on that too. And there's a
And
lot of
you, I'm sorry, I did interrupt. You even have a staff member who's currently out of the office on an extended medical issue. Tell us about that. That's super interesting.
So about 6 weeks ago, one of our longtime employees was diagnosed with AML leukemia. And with AML leukemia, you are hospital bound then, I mean, for quite an extended time. And this has been her way to stay connected, to know what's going on. Little things like we have a huge door decorating contest. That is a huge, big deal with us right now. And for her, she can still be a part of it. And that's really exciting. Also, we're doing a remodel right now, and that's how she's staying connected with what's going on in the remodel. So this way, when she comes back, she still feels connected with all that time that has been lost. And that's exciting that we can do that and especially too, if somebody's on a medical leave, such as a maternity leave too, it's how they can stay connected. So it's fantastic.
That's really the point, is that culture is this thing that becomes nurtured, and this active investment you made in is fascinating. So I'm going to shift back to you, Dave. Talk a little bit as a business leader, the way you and Dr. Brian and others in the practice that are leaders, how much time have you invested in being in this technology, in the software, trying to be authentic and being a vulnerable, visible leader? Does it take a lot of time or not?
No, at first it was a bit of a transition, just getting used to it and used to a new technology. And just for the staff as a whole, it was a learning curve a little bit, but very, very shortly we were able to adapt, get into it, and then you just see it, the snowball effect, so to speak. I mean, you find yourself logging on and wanting to get more information, wanting to see what the staff are up to or what's going on in that day. And so again, it just like anything, it took a little time to just get used to something new, and then you wonder how you've done without it for before that, because you just get used to having that instant connection and communication with everything that's going on.
That's super interesting. You know, from your perspective, Angie, this is an employer-provided tool where you tell people to do work, but also to be themselves, and that's really what today's worker wants to get out of the workplace. So I think we're going to put up on the screen your family focus practice, ThirdSpace. And while we're not going to do a full demo, talk a little bit about your practical reality. And I know you've talked about how the people stay connected and how you've distributed information, but tell me a little bit about what you do to get that engagement and how you've asked folks to act like themselves and be themselves.
Absolutely. You know, and having a staff of 34, it was kind of funny. I'm seeing right now that someone just posted, what are you wearing to the Christmas party? That was a hot topic today. Everyone I ran into said, what are you wearing to the Christmas party? So it's the little things like that. And it gets on there, and then people can go home tonight and they'll see it on there, and then they start commenting. And I love that. The other thing I love is from a management perspective is we post our schedules on there. So if an employee is at home, it's getting us away from a lot of that paper-based management, and we're forcing them to say, your schedule is on here, and you're able to look it up over the weekend and say, well, do we have a meeting on Monday? Absolutely, you can take a look and see if we do. That was part of what made it like a success for us. We discontinued a lot of our paper memos about like the remodel and started telling people, if you want to know what's going on with the remodel and you want to see what's going on, all you need to do is take a look and see what's going on ThirdSpace. And there's different things, you've got the water cooler where we post very general things. And then we also have our separate areas where we have groups, and we have management groups, and we've got the construction area that you see there, announcements. And it's a lot easier to get the communication surrounding the office, especially with a lot of the younger employees. They love their phones. And so for them, this is an easy step.
So from the perspective you have, Dave, of this being, again, and you grant it to them to be authentic, do you worry about people spending too much time on this? Do you want them to spend more time? It sounds like the office manager, Angie, is really appreciative of people being on this and says, this is the hub of activity. Do you feel that way as the business owner?
Yes, definitely. And this is the only networking tool they can be on at work. So obviously we don't allow Facebook and all this. So they can be at their workstation, see what's going on, see if anybody's posted anything. They can check schedules on here, like she mentioned, any updates on construction throughout the day or other meetings that we're having throughout the day. So we really encourage it. We encourage them, again, being on this throughout the day, because then again, they feel more connected with their coworkers. They don't just feel like they're in their one position. They feel like we're a team as a whole. And so that helps. So yes, we definitely encourage it. And we see a lot of action on it throughout the day. So.
That's super interesting that, you are feeling like this is a tool that people should check off. And I've seen pictures as Scott's been scrolling through of, even people on vacation. So you're really inviting them to be their authentic selves. And that's, for some people that lead businesses, it feels like it can be a bit of a distraction. Angie, do you feel like employees want to be treated like that today and be themselves?
I think a lot of this is putting the investment into them. And, we had a cultural change. When we implemented ThirdSpace, we knew we were having turnover. We wanted to make sure we were investing in our people. And we stopped calling everyone. Nobody's called an employee. Nobody's called staff. Everyone's called part of the tribe. And that's a deeper connection right there that we were focusing on. And people love it. People want to be a part of something big, and they want to be a part of a family. And I think that is what this is creating in that workspace environment.
So we talked about you starting, well, I don't know if we talked about it. We started you on ThirdSpace at the beginning of the year, and now you're a good 10 months into it, or maybe not quite that long. How long did it take? Did it take 3 months, 6 months to sort to get to this point where it's muscle memory? Scott Cole always talks about how it's like the toothbrush test. You should use it at least a couple times a day for hygiene. And so did you kind of build that up over time? Tell me about that.
I think people had to adjust to it. Some people weren't sure how to use it at first, but once we started, like you're seeing right there, we started posting like encouragement, some memes, little things like that. People were like, oh, I can do that? Yes, we were encouraging it. And we also made sure we posted birthdays, anniversaries, things like that, any celebration that we had going on. And when they started seeing, hey, it's okay for me to be open on it, and people didn't feel that there was going to be any judgment or anything, it really started taking off. And now it's really a fun environment for everybody.
So go ahead, David.
We have a lot of age ranges through our staff. So, anywhere from the younger to even some that aren't used to technology as much. And it is very user friendly. It's easy to get on and do it. And so we haven't seen any, maybe at first some reluctance with some of the older generation, but they've adapted to, and everybody's on it. And
as your dad would say, even Dr. Brian is able and willing to get on it, right?
He's our test dummy. If he can do it, anybody can do it.
Let the record show that I did not call Dr. Brian a dummy. So that's really interesting, because that's one of those things that the dynamic in practices is some people have groups and cliques, and sometimes there's a person younger or older who doesn't like technology or whatever, and you just say, meet it where it meets you, and let your feet hit the road. And then if you want to watch, that's fine. If you want to contribute, that's fine. And you see natural growth of contribution by everybody, regardless of generation. That's super interesting.
Yeah. And we never, we want it to be a tool for them. We don't dictate how much or how little they should use it. At first, we did definitely encourage the user so they can get used to it and see how they liked it. But after that, it was just hands off. We just let them do it, and we've seen a lot of great feedback. And like I said, it's just grown into where we've done so much now through the office on it, where we're posting pretty much everything.
So let me follow up on that. You've made this intentional investment in culture. Does it filter down to the satisfaction of people and how they take care of patients? Because bad culture results in bad outcomes. And the question is how do I get a sense of, improved culture helps me? Why would I invest in this? I've already got an instant messaging tool, and that's enough. And that's the mistake around this. It's not instant messaging, right? It's a real immersive relationship builder. Does it translate to how people are coming to work? Can either of both of you speak to how it actually comes down to patient care being delivered?
I can attest definitely to that, because you'll see if you go through, you'll see some of my posts on certain things, just adding that word of encouragement. And one of the posts that I had, we had just had a really rough day. We had a lot of people calling sick. It was really, really busy. And I posted this little encouragement, and a couple people the next day said, I really needed that. It's just that little bit of extra effort. I don't have time when I leave and go home to my kids to text 34 people and say, great job today, or a group text. But when I do it on there, everyone gets the opportunity to see it, and they get that little bit of love, and they know that they're being appreciated. I think it's really important to celebrate people on it. It's another tool to celebrate and love on your people. And I think that's a really easy opportunity to outreach to everyone in a very short amount of time.
That's great. One of the things Scott's showing now, we're not intending today to be a demo of the technology. It's more your story, but there is an interesting sort of intelligence engine behind ThirdSpace that starts to read the language in the posts, so you as business leaders can see when people are happy and when they're not. And one thing that you mentioned is people just want to be considered, and they want to be recognized, and they want to be patted on the back. But sometimes you don't even see a person in the front office when you're in the optical, and they might be working together and not even see each other during a day. And this can be a way to start to see what's going on in the practice. So there's a lot of back features that Scott can show if anybody ever wants to get a demo and start to understand what's going well and what's not, because you really want people who are having a bad day to sometimes even be willing to go out there, be vulnerable. Scott is a real expert in culture, and that vulnerability willingness is a contributing factor to business leaders showing that they are actively engaged with their team and culture. So I want to invite anybody who's on the session to be free to type into the comments section down below the chat session. We'll take questions, but what I want to do is hit on a few common perceptions, even misperceptions, and then start to get toward our wrap. One is that, boy, I got a lot of software in my business right now, and you are no different than this at Family Focus. You've got EHR, you've got probably a communication system, you've got a clocking system, right? And so you've added this in on top, and you've added it in, I'm probably looking for head nods, without a lot of additional overhead and challenge. Is that right?
Correct. Yes, exactly. We are on all the, like you said, all the normal technology throughout the day. And it's not that this has been a cumbersome or burdensome thing at all. And in fact, if anything, it's the opposite, because there's certain things that are good in each, like the EHR, for example, you can't get your message out as well to the whole team and in a certain way. And that's where this kind of picks up with that.
That's awesome. Well, and then Scott, go ahead, Angie.
Sorry, but through an EHR, if you send a message through EHRs, it's kind of cold. This is completely the opposite. This is warm and fuzzy. And that's sometimes what a lot of people are looking for, is because we don't get a lot of warm and fuzzy at work. And it gives us that opportunity to give them some of that.
We hear that from other businesses that have used ThirdSpace, companies that are in home health, credit unions, right? Sometimes there's just these intranets that are set up, or hey, here's a Slack channel, and it's cold, right? And it doesn't mean that it's not a good communication tool, but this isn't about communication. Your story so resonates for me because it's about connecting people. You talk about family, and so I'm glad you're talking about it the way you are. But I want to let Scott Cole speak for a second because there is an investment. And Scott, you've worked with Peter Thiel and the WOA on a pricing discount, and I think it's important we get that out there. There's a very transparent pricing system, and we have a financial support piece to WOA. Could you give that a couple moments of time?
Definitely, yeah. We made it really, really simple. So it's $199 a month, and you can have up to 50 people on ThirdSpace. And what's great is that you get the web browser version, which we have here, and you can use it in any browser on your laptop or mobile device. And then we also have the Android and iOS version. So, it's the type of thing like you can wake up and check it before you go in the office and see how things are going, make a post, post the kids' first day of school, that type of thing, and you can check it, on edge as you're kind of sitting at the dinner table if you want, and share something, one of your experiences there with the rest of the team. So you get the whole, package, both platforms for mobile and then also this. And it's really simple. And there's really no added cost beyond that. There's no maintenance. There's no server that you have to maintain in your back, office. It's all cloud-based. And all upgrades and updates to the software are included. So we don't want to be like a headache. And then there's a 90-day out. Like, try it for 90 days. You're not going to have a perfect culture in 90 days. It takes time. And like Family Focus has been working on this for nearly a year. And they're just beginning to see the fruits of their efforts. And, but 90 days, if you're just like, it's not working for us, we're not going to hold your arm behind your back, feel free to, just tell us thanks. But it's a really easy in and out, and we'll work with you from, day one all the way through onboarding. And when you're ready, we can take the training wheels off and off you go.
Yeah, and a lot of eye doctor practices are used to reps coming in talking about the equivalency ROI, and it's one of those famous, right? This is not even a half year of one patient buying disposable contacts for this tool that does everything that Dr. Hamas and Angie have spoken about. That it's available 31 days a month and at every minute of the day. And we're not asking our employees to live our businesses every day of the year, but to be a differentiated business, sometimes you have to really call out to employees or prospective employees why it's different. So I want to sort of wrap up with that. Angie, you've given me a sense that it's really different. You mentioned a new employee, and how is it standing out? Family Focus already stands out, the way it delivers care, but you're a different kind of employer because of this, aren't you?
It does set us apart. I've always taken the card that we are out there to take care of our employees, and this really just proves it. It's the little things like this that Dr. David and Dr. Brian do for us that make us stay, and it gives us longevity too. We appreciate just the impact that it gives us and the deeper connection to all of the employees.
Yeah, and I guess one last word for you, Dave. The idea that there's technology all around us all the time, you've already said this isn't difficult to employ, but there's a lot of doctors who would listen to this and would say, well, a credit union is different than eye care practice. I see everybody all day long. I lead by example. You and your doctor leaders do that too, but ThirdSpace is different and makes it different in your business because?
Well, I think some of the pictures we saw there, you can talk to some of your staff in passing and everybody gets busy through the day. But when they see you on a trip somewhere with your family, or they see you out with a group of your coworkers having a good time, and that, it begins to be more than just the job and just a boss and employee relationship. I mean, it truly is more of a family and a team, and like you said, you get to know more. So I think it's just a lot more than just that little bit you see your staff throughout the day. And so it's just been a complete shift in thinking. And I think the staff, it's really neat now that they're into it. It's like we have our own little social network. Which is, you know, I mean, that's really cool for new people coming on. You know, this is our own little thing here. So I think that's really neat. And, you know, in optometry, it fits so well because whether we're a big office like ours or you have a smaller, you know, again, it's still that out of office area. Plus, many have maybe branches that they have satellite location where they have other staff out. And it just, I mean, there's so much opportunity out there, I think.
Right.
So true. Well, we've seen this work in a lot of different businesses. And while we think eye care practices should definitely think about taking an active engagement in their employee culture and their business culture, we're willing to accept referrals for, you know, everything from real estate businesses to banking. I mean, this works. You know, if anybody's got an into Harley Davidson, let us know, because we know that these businesses all want to actively create, you know, some culture activity, but they do it with different kinds of means. And the family focused story is a really great one. And so I want to thank you again for participating and joining us. Scott, are there any last minute questions that came in?
There are, thanks. Yeah, we have 2 questions. So the first one came in from Brad, and Brad's question was, hey, what does ThirdSpace do more than being essentially Facebook for our office?
Yeah, I'm going to let Angie answer that because it looks like a social network, but you definitely use it for more than that.
I can definitely have the perfect answer for that. A lot of our staff, think about it. I have 650 friends on Facebook, and they're not going to get a lot of the work stuff. And there's a lot of things I want to keep private that I want to share with people at work, but I don't want to share them with 650 friends. So I post more on this than I do on my personal Facebook because I'm trying to keep that side of me private, but I'm a lot more open with my staff and my team. This is like a close family network. It's completely different. I thought the same thing when we first implemented it too. I'm like, what's going to be the difference? It's a very big difference. All of our staff agrees with that. We're a lot more open on this than we would be on our Facebook page.
And David, you have used the Spaces function to create private groups so you can have conversations with just a couple of doctors, which no one else will see even if they're on ThirdSpace. And you've used that functionality, which is another important business activity that can be performed in ThirdSpace.
Definitely. And like, you know, just, I mean, like we said before, you know, we have all of our documents on there, our handbook, our scheduling. So it's not just for social networking. I mean, there's a lot of business that goes on in there. And
Great point.
You know, it's more than that.
Scott, any other questions?
Yeah, and Brad, you know, I've got a kind of an interesting write-up, Lisa. I think it's interesting, but it's something I'd be willing to share with you about, you know, features and functionality and intentionality of culture and the shifting of culture. So if you shoot me an email, excuse me, I will gladly share that with you. So just send an email to scole@thirdspace.us, and it's just a 2-pager that'll kind of describe, you know, how does this go beyond a Facebook or a Slack or something along those lines. One more question. Yeah, Tessa sent in, hey everyone, did I understand it correctly that the program has a language detection component that detects the emotions of the posts, emotion recognition AI? That's
yeah, speak to that, Scott.
Yeah, let me show you real quick. And again, like, we don't want to be product demo-y here, but so it's a sentiment analysis engine, and what it does is I'm going to run it on one of the spaces that they have, their water cooler, and I'll just do like the last 30 days. And what this is doing is, let me move this little box over here. It gives you this magnitude that goes between -1 and 1. And what's that is saying is that there is a likelihood or a very strong correlation between this and some emotion. And then the size of that sphere is basically the amount that's present. So it's really not making a judgment about the emotion being good or bad. That's ultimately up to you as a doc, or, you know, as someone who's running the operations of the clinic. But what's interesting about it is I can click on this. You know, you're busy, you're seeing patients all day, there's so much going on, and you could run this engine in the morning or in the afternoon and be like, wow, there's something really interesting going on here because there's a high magnitude and there's a lot of activity. I'm going to click on it, and oh, Angie's talking about this benefit for Amanda. And then now you as a manager can at a glance pop in there and participate, whereas you don't have time to scroll through every post that happens. So it's giving you some direction on where to look, and is something happening that's good or potentially bad? Again, your judgment ultimately, because Family Focus has a really strong positive culture. So even though something might trend to, a -2 on this chart here, I didn't give a long enough range. That's 30 days, boom. -2 might be, nothing. Whereas, in another organization, that might actually be a pretty intense emotion, and there might actually be, something really negative going on there. But yes, this is a Google AI that's actually running in the background, and we've really only scratched the surface on its use. And again, we're sort of erring towards the opportunity to trust each other. So some people might feel like, oh, that's really intrusive. Somebody's watching me. It's like, well, they can see anyway. They can read anything in here anyway, but why not trust you and put it out there and say, hey, this is really an opportunity to support each other in good times and in bad. And if there is a bit of kind of a brush fire about something, that's a learning moment. Let's work through it as a team and as a family. So rather than hide from it.
And so this is, the administrators in the practice see this. This is information only within your ThirdSpace, not aggregated by ThirdSpace or provided back to Google. It's information that's meant for your business intelligence.
Yeah.
So thanks for reading those, Scott. Since we're bumping up on the end of our time frame, and we've had people hanging around with us for a long time, I'm going to say in my closing remarks, this is a business tool that you provide to your team to try to create greatness. And it's hard to do that. There aren't cookbooks. There are too many people that say great culture is equivalent to something, but this, as the Family Focus story goes, is a demonstration of how great culture can be really driven from the inside by leadership and all the way down to the newest hire. So I thank you again, Dr. Dave and Angie, for being here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Scott for hosting. So on behalf of the ThirdSpace team, I hope you have a great night, and I hope you'll reach out to Scott Cole and have a conversation. With that, I wish you a great night and be great.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.